Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a conversation with DM Scotty, the DM Scotty. Not the. There's another DM
Who?
Scotty out there. There's a parody account called DM Saki that's out there that my 2-year-old started. But this is the real DM Scotty. Now I'm guessing if you're watching this live and you're on my YouTube channel, Earl T. Gray, it's very unlikely you have not heard of this man, my friend, DM Scotty, who actually is my dungeon master. Part of why we're talking tonight is we usually play off and on a Roll20 campaign that kind of fell through tonight. So I reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in doing some sort of Q&A, which we kind of do all the time informally. But
Right.
I thought to really give people my take on what questions I would ask you. Not that I don't get to ask you all the time, but for them to just hear some of the fun stories and history and dreaming of where you're thinking the crafting scene is going. But, I've given a somewhat of an introduction, but how would you introduce yourself? Let's pretend someone, since YouTube is like the second biggest search engine in the world, Scotty, how would you introduce yourself to someone who has no idea who DM Scotty is? They think you're like a DJ or something if they came across this video. Well, you got the headphones on, you got the cans on. So.
Sure, I do have these big headphones on. I don't know. I'm just some DM that stumbled into this, and I'm tripping all the way, and and a few people liked it, and I did some more stuff, and a few more people liked it, and then I did a few more things. I thought, oh heck, I'll just keep going with this, and then a few more people liked it, and now we're actually we just hit 4,000 members on the Facebook group today.
Yep.
So pretty amazing. But yeah, I don't know. When I try to describe myself, it's just I'm just a regular DM like everybody else, and I just had a problem. My problem was I wanted to do terrain on the table because I'm an old 40K guy. Okay, so we love our love our terrain. We roll on the table on it and everything, like a cat. But so I wanted to bring that to the table, and the problem with the table is it's different than wargaming. You know what I'm saying? Because wargaming, when we would play, we would stand up most of the time.
Yeah.
Because you need to have a view. We had a lot of 3D terrain, and I'm not one of these people that didn't put like two things on the table. Like we had a whole table of terrain, and what's the fun if you don't maneuver and you have blocks, line of sight, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we would stand most of the game. Like we wouldn't sit down. We'd sit down maybe between turns or something, but we would stand most of the time to see where to move stuff and all that. Well, that doesn't really work at an RPG table. It's not comfortable. You don't want people to not be able to see what's going on. If you're going to have terrain and they can't see what's going on, well, why bother having terrain? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of defeats the purpose,
I found the only time you stand during an RPG game is when you've been sitting too long and like your butt falls asleep. Otherwise, you're sitting most of the time.
When my players stand is to get up to get some snacks. Because in my live games, we have a bar that's right by the table, so we just lay out all the snacks right on that bar, and yeah, it's just awesome. But anyways,
the geek cornucopia just laid out, sprawled out.
It is totally a geek cornucopia, and I actually have to take some breaks, during the game because, they're munching the whole time, and I, DMing is a very involved process. You're thinking, you're getting stuff ready and all this kind of stuff, and you really don't have time to sit there and snack, So I'll legitimately take breaks, I'll say, oh, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, DM Scotty's gonna have a snack or whatever, and we'll sit and shoot the shit for a while, and I'll take a snack. But anyways, back to the table. Yeah, it was just really playability was what I was going for, and there were two things. The cost, I didn't want it to be a huge cost, all that in the casting. The casting is messy. I mean, I'm good with people that do I mean, if you want to do that,
Yeah.
you know, if you want to cast, you know, knock yourself out. I don't have anything against casting, but my thing is I don't want to do that because, you know, one mold of the Hearst Arts thing, you know, that won't even get you a room. You know, that won't even get you a corner. You know, you got to mold and mold and mold. You got to do it so many times. And the things are heavy. You know, there's so many things against casting for me. It's messy. It's heavy. You could do the 2.5D with it, but generally people didn't. They did the full walls. And then there was the other thing, the Dwarven Forge, which, you know, is super expensive. You know, for a small dungeon, you're talking $300.
Hey. There goes our sponsorship, okay?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Brought to you by Dwarven Forge. Formerly brought to you by Dwarven Forge.
And then I was like, you know, I could make stuff out of cardboard. And then I hit upon the idea of the walls, like the 2.5D walls.
Now, sorry to jump in. You have a video of one of your first times using that system, right? It was from like a Pathfinder campaign or something.
We were actually playing a Pathfinder game. It had the Stag Lord in it. It was Kingmaker. Kingmaker is the adventure path.
Cool.
So that was the first time I used it, and the players loved it. Like, we had it did what 2.5D does. It allows you to see what's going on at the table, but it gives a lot of flavor, you know, to what you're doing. And virtually everything I had in that game was 2.5D. Like, I had towers that were 2.5D. I had horses that were 2.5 and stables. The doors were 2.5D. Like, almost nothing was 3D. I made tables like out of little cardboard pieces that were just a piece of cardboard. It didn't have legs or anything. And the doors were kind of the same way. So yeah, everything literally was 2.5D. And then I kind of evolved. As I thought about it more, I kind of evolved past that and started adding the 3D elements.
Well, in case, again, for the person searching for DJ Scotty and came up with DM Scotty and is watching this interview. I think I'm going to put a link in the description after the show of that first video, because I think you did kind of like a flashback video talking about and showing pics from that first campaign or that first session.
I took pics of it, yeah.
But how would you best describe, and I could go in the other room and grab my tiles, but without doing that, how would you describe what 2.5D is for the newbie, for the uneducated,
for the uninitiated?
That's the word I was looking for. For the uninitiated, how would you describe 2.5D?
2.5D is basically simulated walls. So it really facilitates the ease of play is what it does.
So it's not 2D flat, it's not 3D all the way.
It's not just a tile. It's not just a tile.
Yeah.
But it has the 2.5D walls glued to the edges. So
now
you can.
Yeah. So there's a link to Scotty's channel in the description here. I'm seeing some of the usual suspects in the chat room here. I'm sure they all know the deal for sure. But one thing if you remember, there's a version of basic D&D called the Holmes Edition. It's got like a blue cover with a dragon on the front. The guy that wrote that, I think, what's his name? I have one of his other books, John Eric Holmes. This is a book of his, Maze of Peril. But long story short, long tangent here. I came across a blog that talks a lot about that version of D&D, and they had pictures from a Gen Con where he ran a game called Beginner's Guide to what's that game? Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah, that little game.
but I looked, and there were these homemade tiles. Now they had walls, but what was cool? What was cool though is this feel of like what I love about what you've started with this scene of. I mean, people have been making their own terrain for years, But
Oh yeah, yeah.
to really jumpstart where I think you've got over 20,000, maybe close to 25,000 YouTube subscribers. I help admin
Yeah,
the Facebook group, and I just
I'm
saw we
getting
got
close to
4,000.
23.
Yeah.
23 close. Yeah.
Um, let's go back to those earlier days in the gaming scene. When did you get started with RPGs, and what were those systems? And do you remember some of your favorite characters from
Oh,
when
right.
you were a youth?
Right, right. Um, I really DM'd from the start. Like I never actually played. Like I always DM'd. And
So your
a
favorite
friend of mine had
NPC then?
a friend of mine had a character named Brother Thallow, and he was a pretty cool character. But I think when I ran it earlier, it was more hack and slash and take the loot, and
Yeah.
less role play-y, I guess, more role play, with the dice.
Yeah.
And we got someone sneaking in here.
You want to say hi?
Hi, sweetie.
There's people watching you right now. You want to say hi to Uncle Scotty?
Hello.
She had her birthday yesterday.
I know.
She had
That's so awesome.
Star Wars birthday.
That is totally awesome.
All right. Can you say goodnight to everybody?
Good night.
Night, sweetie. But yeah, I was more dice role play, more hack and slash, kick the door in, the traditional kick the door in, beat up the monsters and take their treasure kind of player. And as my kids grew up, I did play with them a bit, D&D a bit, and we did some more role play. I did some more role playing with them.
Sure.
But yeah, and then my friends, we got back. It'd been years since I'd played, and then my friends wanted to get back into it, and of course I got nominated DM, so that's where we kind of picked up. We actually started with Castles and Crusades.
Okay.
When we started back up. Yeah.
Yeah, Castles and Crusade. Again, our word for the night. If this was Pee Wee's Playhouse, the secret word would be uninitiated. That's the secret word. But
oh, right.
For the uninitiated, Castles and Crusades is a OSR, old school revival or old school Renaissance game, kind of a throwback to like more first edition D&D style of play. But I have a number of friends that are big fans of the system. I have some materials, but haven't played in any Castles and Crusades games yet. But cool. So you got back into the hobby. I think I've asked your wife this in our one of our games, but what exactly happened at home when all of a sudden you went from this one-time thing with the Pathfinder setup to now there's glue guns laying around, I'm sure, and there's toilet paper getting turned into rocks, and there's cardboard that keeps getting adopted and brought home. Did it like exponentially grow as an outlet in your life, or I mean, did you have other hobbies you gave up for the cause of crafting?
I think probably playing World of Warcraft I gave up.
Yeah.
No, I was we played a lot of kind of MMOs online. We actually had kind of a family group, like my dad played, and my sister-in-law. We had a whole ready-made group, so it was kind of fun. But we played a lot of particularly World of Warcraft. And then I got kind of to the end of that. Things run their course, and you just get tired of something, and pretty much all MMOs are the same thing. I mean, I'm probably gonna get beat up for this, but they're all pretty much the same thing. So, that's when we started getting into the real live tabletop D&D, going back to the tabletop. And, it really is a different experience. although those computer games and stuff are based on D&D, and the mechanics of the game work the same way. It's just the computer does it for you. There's really no substitute for like just sitting around with your friends, telling a story, and having a blast at the table, just making up cool stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, the ultimate supercomputer sits right between your ears, And I was thinking about this the other day. The theater of the mind. What's great is, as a DM, when you're giving the players something to think about, they want it to be the coolest thing they can possibly think about. No one plays a game and thinks like, well, I guess that monster is kind of interesting. You're thinking, oh my goodness, it's a troll. What does that troll look like? And like, how is it dangerous and all that stuff? Like, they're doing all the computer work in their head that, for in a computer game, that the designers do their best to make a shared experience. But I think that's some of the magic, if you will, of tabletop, is it is a shared experience, but everybody saw a totally different movie in their mind. If everyone was to go to a sketch artist, everyone would have a different experience that they had. But that's part of the cool thing about it. So
it is really cool. And that can be something that people, kind of, that don't like the terrain stuff that we do can throw in your face. It's like, well, with the pure, imagination, you're building that stuff in your mind, and, you don't need to see a cool thing that someone built up, Yeah. But I try to, even though I have terrain and stuff, I try to bring the stuff to life. Like even minor enemies with personality, and they have their own goals and personality, and they'll do unexpected stuff and they'll have quirks. I try to make even like minor NPCs interesting.
Yeah.
So you can bring all that into it, even though you have all the terrain. You can still engage them in that way.
What would you say in terms of when I was at? I live in the Twin Cities, and actually, Fantasy Flight Games is based out of here, which I guess I was uninitiated because I didn't know that. Didn't look in the back of the box. Cool. So I didn't look on the back of the box for a while. So they have like attached or next door to their factory. Well, I think you said it. The factory's in China, but next to their headquarters,
the real factory.
Next to their headquarters, there's like a restaurant, and then all these gaming tables and a lot of wargaming terrain. And as I looked at the wargaming terrain, I thought, man, there is so much fine detail in this.
Right.
For me, and I'd love your thoughts, I feel like in some ways I don't want super fine detail in a room, because I'm just trying to give the players the general layout, and again, let the theater of the mind fill in what every brick would look like. What everything is supposed to be. So it's a general representation, but if you get too fine down to the details of those other things, you kind of, I think, like I said, spoiling the movie that's going to play in their minds. But that's just my take on it, maybe.
Right. No, I agree with that. I'm, I don't know, when I set up stuff on the table, I'll put basic stuff, like basic furniture and stuff, but I don't really go overboard with it. I don't. If it's an alchemist lab, I don't have every single thing, in the lab or whatever, because you can add that stuff with theater of the mind, or you say that you see this on the table, or, whatever. You don't have to build, that's one thing I've tried to stress. You don't have to build up every single thing that you see,
Lord Morbius in the comments here has a great one. Says, in theater of the mind, my group sees manga or Lord of the Rings, when all I see is Frank Frazetta. Definitely a different experience for the same game. That's really cool. That's a great statement. Totally, I could see that.
It is. That is great. One thing that the terrain does help with, though, is for everybody to be on the same page as far as what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I have people in my group that are very visual, and I found that if I don't have at least a certain amount of detail, they get confused and don't know what's going on. They have a hard time filling in the blanks. Other people are better at it. Some are not as good. So even if you use a basic map on a, you draw it on a board, that that can help too. But I find that players like it because I have several players that like that visual. They like, and for me, it kind of actually transports me to that miniature world. I feel like I'm this, observer looking down on this scene that's like I treat it like a scene. Like I treat it like a movie. I try to treat it like a movie scene, when I do at the table, when I do stuff at the table.
I think too, your brain tactically, for certain games, if you think about checkers or chess, you could play it without seeing where your pieces are, but you're going to think a lot differently if you can visually look, okay,
right.
I'm going to take my king and put it here. I'm going to take the knight and put it here versus
right.
Now, and at the same time, I'm sure there's a different kind of creativity that you're forced to use if you can't see it, if you can't see anything. But
right.
I do think, for maybe depending on the flavor, but if we're talking about standard issue Dungeons and Dragons or games of that ilk, I feel like there's enough tactical and range-based things where it does help to have that visual representation, even if it's on a game like we play together in Roll20.
Right.
I just have a better sense of like, what can I do? Can that person see me? Can they not? And then you don't have to answer every single question, which also can take up time too. So
right, that can slow the game down with kind of non-essential, things that aren't flavor. You know what I'm saying?
So yeah. And really you want to keep it, I think rule 0 is have fun. Is it fun?
Oh yeah.
Like that should win. I've tried to explain the game.
Fun should always win. Good or whatever happens, good or bad, it should always be fun.
Yeah, I tried to explain the game to someone, and they said, "So, like, how do you win the game?" And I said, "Well, you win if everybody's having fun." And he goes, "Sounds dumb," but
well, that's not winning.
People don't get tattoos of something that's that dumb, or maybe they are dumb if they get those. But like, so going off of the tactics piece, and a plug for your latest series of videos, Tilescapes. Tell us a little bit what Tilescapes is. I'll throw a link in the description after the show. I'm just going to say that about just about everything. I'm going to put a link at the end of the show, and then you're going to come back in a week, and it's not going to have anything in it. You just know that I'm full of it. But tell us what Tilescapes is, and then my theorem that we messaged a little bit earlier about this was, how many scenarios do you really need the exact, well, this room has to be 60 feet wide. It can't be 70 or 80 feet wide. It's very important to the story. Like,
right.
So what is Tilescapes, and what's your thought on fudging a little bit with how Tilescapes is by design?
I fudge my dungeons all the time. I'm never totally happy with, and I run a lot of modules. Playing with me, you've known that, but I modify them quite a bit. I play a lot of modules as a basis to start, but like I said, I'm never totally happy with the layouts of the dungeon, so I'll change it up. And you're the dungeon master; you can change it up however you want, whatever makes sense to you. Because I like the dungeons to make sense in some shape or form, and I'll change stuff and add stuff to make it make sense to me, as an ecology, as a location, that kind of thing. Because if there are monsters there, it has to work for them. It's not just this isolated thing that each monster's in their own room and it's an isolated ecology. There's a whole thing going on in the dungeon generally, and you need to think about that when you create the dungeon. And I find that some modules don't really think about that. They just throw a dungeon together and they throw you in there and that's it. So that's kind of where I stand in making my own dungeons from modules. Like I'll just whatever feels right to me, and if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter. You got to remember when you're DMing, nobody knows. When they're exploring the dungeon, they don't know that this room was supposed to be 40 by 40 instead of 60 by 40, whatever. You know what I'm
saying? They want to believe, like I was saying, when they imagine the monsters, they want to believe that it's really scary and interesting and a real threat.
Right.
You know, so they want to
Right.
believe that, yeah, I totally had all this planned, right?
Right. 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 When you may not have had totally everything planned. It may have evolved as you played. You may have changed it up as you played. The player maybe found something that you didn't expect or you made up on the fly, and you can just add it to it. You can just put it in there. So yeah, that's kind of my thought on it.
Yeah. You've done some other systems, 2.5D Next, which is more, I'd say, I guess my descriptor of it would be more wall based,
Right. Right.
or wallscapes. Maybe could be
Wallscapes.
so you have wallscapes,
Yeah.
and then you have tilescapes, and then you
Yeah.
have 2.5D, which is kind of both mixed together. It's
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, and then I'm waiting for airscapes. So airscapes is like the vertical part of what
The
you can't
elevation,
see.
yeah.
But is that kind of an accurate descriptor, would you say, of the two, the difference between the two? One is kind of more wall based and one is more sort of tile based on how they function for the
Oh, I
DM.
would say that. Yeah, totally. Totally it is. Yeah, Tilescapes is definitely more tile based. But and unlike 2.5D, it has more 3D elements. And I think of it really think of it like what I think of it like is an isometric map, where there's certain walls that are viewed, but the rest is open, kind of thing. It's very
Like
similar
the classic,
to that kind of a yeah, the classic video game.
well, I was going to say Ravenloft. If you ever see the original Ravenloft map, I'll put that in the show notes too.
Yeah,
But
yeah, the Ravenloft map exactly. Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I remember that being an isometric one that was
Right.
you don't see everything, but you see what's important in
Mm-hmm,
an
mm-hmm.
isometric way.
Right.
By the way, I forgot the name of the fellow on your forum, DM's Craft forum. I'll put that in the show notes too.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch this just to see all the links that I'm keep saying I'm gonna post. But there's a guy that's been doing Castle Ravenloft,
Uh-huh.
top to bottom, and
Yeah, that's quite a
it's looking
chore.
really cool. Yeah, it's looking really cool
Yeah,
to
it
see
is.
those isometric maps and then seeing them actually kind of come to life on a table is pretty cool.
Right, it is. It is.
DMG info says 500-page show notes. Probably you're gonna need to like upgrade your computer so you have enough RAM to load how many show notes.
Then it's big show notes up.
Well, how would you describe? I know how I would describe it because I can truly call you DM Scotty because you are my dungeon master in our 5e campaign we play in, and that you run. But how would you describe your style, and how does that kind of influence how you go about prepping games? There's lots of videos, and you kind of touched on it when you say you use a module to start out with. But what other tips? Because I've seen so many videos out there about here's how I prep. Here's a book that I keep on hand. Here's something else. What little nuggets could you maybe give people watching this that want to learn? And I will tell you this, whoever's viewing, you should be really jealous that I get to play in a game with Scotty because he is an awesome DM. If you ever hear, what's a yes and DM? Whatever the idea, he says yes, and he just keeps going with it. Now, that doesn't mean you always get everything you want.
Right, right.
But I have to even look up to see if you can do that. It's always, well, you can try that, and then you will suffer the consequences. But absolutely,
right. There's always
that's one of the things
consequences. There's always consequences. Yeah. That's a great way to think about it.
I kind of went off on a tangent, but what tips would you give people that are wanting some ideas of how to prep? And I'd say in the DM Scotty style, and to be able to flow with the players, taking all sorts of oddball directions.
Right. That's a good question. I do have a video that's 5 DM Scotty tips for DMing.
I'll put it in the show notes.
It's not specifically on my terrain though. It's more about just straight DMing. But yeah, because it is a little different prepping with terrain because you want to have the stuff available. If the players do something or go somewhere, you want to have the stuff available to show a certain amount of terrain. And like I said, you don't have to show terrain for everything. I think one thing, I'll do quite a bit of theater of the mind without terrain at certain points in the game. Like I generally don't lay out a town or a city. What I'll generally do for that is I'll give them a map. And they can all look at the map and reference the map. And so they don't necessarily need to have all these buildings laid out and everybody, a shopkeeper in every building. And, I think new people to the crafting can stress out because they're like, oh God, I got to have, all this millions of things and I don't have time to make all that. Well, what I say is make what you definitely need for the game. If you need 5 rooms of a dungeon, make those 5 rooms of a dungeon. If you need 5 doors, make the 5 doors. If you need a few tables, make those. But don't make the other 50 things you think you might need. What I'm saying? It's like, don't stress about that. I mean, that's, we're trying to have fun. We're not trying to stress out about it. So,
yeah,
your collection will build as you start doing more and more terrain.
Would you say some? Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, was some of the appeal of 2.5D Next and Tilescapes that it allows you to go more on the fly because you're not locked into a made tile?
Yes, it is. Because we have some other excellent crafters who I want to give shout outs to. There's so many excellent crafters, but specifically DMG and Wylock have some really great modular 2.5D stuff. And when I did the 2.5D, I pretty much built everything to like order. Like I didn't really build it with much modularity in mind. That's why the 2.5D Next came in. But you could combine both styles. But I kind of build it to order, and it's kind of good to have stuff that you can build on the fly. It's nice that's why what motivated me to do the 2.5D Next, because it's nice to have that stuff to modify, that you can modify on the fly.
Yeah. How would you say, with all these different things, storage has been something you've had to work with? And I will say,
a lot of people
becomes a marriage issue. Absolutely becomes a marriage issue.
Well, we were talking about, before, my wife, I don't know if I answered the question, but my wife, when I started doing this and everything, well, when we first started playing, I was kind of like printing out maps. Like I would print the maps from modules and stuff and just print them out black and white, on large pieces of paper. And even glue them together and stuff when I first started. And that's when I wanted to look for something different for the 2.5D. So I started getting more and more into crafting, and more, of course, more and more junk comes along with that. But, my wife kind of got to see the direct result of that kind of influx of like crafting stuff, because she got to play on it,
Yeah.
So, and they all enjoyed it so much, like, oh, wow, this is so cool. I mean, it's a big difference playing on a black and white map and having like a room in 2.5D in front of you. Because like I say, your attention kind of goes into that. For me, your attention kind of like fixates on that little set, and it's almost like a movie, going on in front of you. And, when I was a kid, I love, they're called action figures now, but I love dolls. I love like, I had like the superhero, the mecha superheroes, and the Planet of the Apes, and I used to set up all kinds of cities and all kinds of stuff with them. I'd even make stuff for the superheroes and all that. So sure. I have a huge love, and then with Warhammer, I have a huge love of this setting up little miniature sets. So the D&D thing is just kind of the extension of that.
Lord Morbius is on a roll here in the comments. He says, "My wife said." My wife said either the craft stuff goes or I do.
Oh no!
It's not so lonely. It's not so lonely now that I use her closet for storage.
I am really so lucky. My wife is totally understanding. Never gives me any grief. We have a basement, so I'm lucky I have the storage. But
sure.
She doesn't give me any grief on it. I know I'm pretty lucky, because I know there are other guys that their wives are like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Why are you doing this? And you're taking up space. And I'm lucky that I have the space and I have the wife who, is very understanding about it. But
I'm wondering if we could do a confession back and forth of our most embarrassing crafting item thing, of how an embarrassing story of obtaining crafting materials. Probably, the stuff that's discarded or junk or whatever. But one of mine would be near my work. There's a house that is kind of that house that has 6 cars in the driveway and 2 of them actually drive. And there's always something on the curb. Well, this time, right to your right, my left, Scotty, I see some tote bins, some drawer plastic bins.
Oh yeah.
So on this trash day, I saw them sitting outside, and I thought, well, I've grabbed them from the trash before. I could grab them, you scrub them out, as long as they're not cracked or messed up, and they're in good shape, look like they've been stored outside. So I threw them in my trunk, went to work, and unloaded them later. And I tactfully unload them in my garage in places my wife can't see them. Now, that usually works, except she walks up to me one day and says, well, so Amanda said she saw you digging in the garbage. so her friend drove by and saw me park my car, hazard lights on, loading up trash from that house into my trunk,
right.
and bringing it home. So that's one of my more embarrassing ones. I mean, other than every time you're in a dumpster and you feel like, am I breaking some sort of law or ordinance I don't know about? Am I going to get in trouble for this? And then you totally feel like a junkie or like a homeless person looking for food or something. So what about you? Do you have any good stories for us to share, to confess to us?
I'm a pretty good ninja. I don't think I've really been caught,
or you have no shame,
or I have no shame, one or the other. I've a good place that I've got styrofoam from. I built more 3D terrain for my Warhammer. I used to go to the back of like furniture stores and they'd throw a lot of styrofoam out, and I'd find a lot of styrofoam. I think probably the funniest story is, those large pink and blue sheets, the insulation foam that you can get at like the big box hardware stores. Well, I'll buy some every now and then because I'll make stuff out of it, and it will not fit in my car. I mean, well, I I drive a Fiat, so yeah, of course it won't fit in my car. But so I'll be taking the big sheet out, wrestling it out to the parking lot, and then I'll just go to town on it. Like I'll just grab it and I'll rip it in half. I'll have to literally bust it in half, and people are like, "What is he doing?" Like, because I'm just like grabbing one end, and it makes a horrendous crack, when you break it. Yeah. And so I might have to break it up, and I'll usually have to break it up in 3 or 4 pieces, to get it in the car. So that's kind of funny. So I'll just do that right in the parking lot. I'll just be sitting there by my car breaking this styrofoam up, and people are just like, okay.
In last winter, and I'll put a video of this in the show notes. Actually, twice. I'll tell you the whole story because why the heck not? This is my channel, and even if you drop out, Scotty, I'm going to keep telling this story, even if it's not good. Dwarf says, "So your shame is actually driving a Fiat."
Oh.
Yeah. Well, shots fired. Shots fired, I think. So there was a construction site, and I'm in Minnesota, so we get some cold winters now and then. And so this is like January, cold, windy, but there was still some construction going because we're nuts like that here, and we'll still build houses when it's like 20 below. But like the full, it was maybe 5x5 sheets had blown off of this new construction house, and I saw one in the road, and to get it out of the road, I pulled over, and then again, people had to think I was nuts. Hazard lights on, smack, crack, put the thing in the back of my Camry. But and then here's what's sad. In this video, I had just pulled around after loading this up, and I said, "Oh, look, there's one in the tree. Do you see that?" And every day, I drop my daughter off at school, and then I drive to work from there. I'd see this 5x5 sheet in this tree day after day, and I thought I should pull over. And then it got really bad where I thought, because we have a minivan too, I thought I should tell the next time I need to like go to get a grocery at night, I'm really gonna go and I'm gonna pick up the sheet, and then I'm gonna hide it in the garage and not tell my wife about it. And then the saddest thing happened. I drive by one day, and it's gone.
Oh
and
no!
Thought, I fool of a toque. I could have. I had so many chances. And I blew them all. Come on. And then that spring, the snow melted, and there was the perfectly intact sheet that I broke up and put it in my Camry. But long story short,
this one is not getting away.
Oh yeah,
you're not getting away this time.
So the long story short, there's a just endless stack. Unless I was going to do like a huge, no, there is like a lifetime supply of that blue 1-inch extruded.
Oh, sorry, extruded. Yes.
Polystyrene.
Yeah.
But I would say here's a tip, and maybe we can go back and forth with some crafter tips. Not to give them all away, because you do a lot of great ones on your show. And by the way, you should be supporting your DM Scotty on Patreon. And $1 a month gets you access to Crafter's Lair. Crafter's Lair is a video magazine only for members, and it is great. It is.
Oh,
great.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
There's a lot of longer content than a normal episode, and a lot of great little pockets of things. You get sneak previews, you get tips. But I'm going to see if I can get some freebies out of DM Scotty right now. But one of them I would say is when you see new construction going up, as soon as you see that blue foam, I can almost guarantee you pull up, look in the construction dumpster, and there's going to be scraps that they threw out that on a 28 millimeter scale is like, it's gold. And they're just throwing it out. So
even scraps are like way big enough to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any newer tips that you've been able to use lately?
Let's see. What would be a good tip?
Or do you have hot spots that you like to check out? There is a recycling dumpster at my work, and we sell donuts on the weekends. So these donut boxes are perfect for cardstock.
Yes.
I sent you a replica original D&D brown box that was made out of donut boxes.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I feel like kind of like a fisherman getting there early in the morning. So on Monday morning, I just swallow my pride and go and walk back to my office with a whole stack of donut boxes.
Right. I think most people will probably be surprised, how much you can actually get from work. I know people that work at, the big box stores talk about this all the time. They have basically unlimited cardboard. And, even card stock, because a lot of boxes have card stock in the bottom. They have those sheets of card stock in the bottom, even in styrofoam, So, those people are kind of golden. They've got, it's like the gold mine of, the cheap materials. But even people who work in an office, you'd be kind of surprised how much gets thrown away. Just go down, if you have a place where they put the boxes and store them before they throw them out or something, which we kind of do at my work. I just go in there and I just nobody cares if you take any of this. They're going to throw it away anyway. So always kind of follow that lead. Kind of follow because people are always throwing out. In office they're throwing out those boxes that are. I love to use those boxes that you put envelopes in for card stock. They have some. That's great for use for card stock. And almost every office has those. So follow those breadcrumbs to the magic pot of crafting material, and so I think almost anybody who has a job could have access to like cardboard, cardstock, styrofoam, that kind of stuff.
I found also, even if you don't really have access, or maybe you work from home or whatever it is, most places, if what you're asking for is something that they will throw out, 9 times out of 10, they're happy to give it away instead of throw it out.
Exactly.
And then you have a chance to evangelize the work of your DM Scotty and
yeah, if you don't work at a place that has any of those throwaway materials, just ask, like Nathan said, just ask a friend. Say, hey, do they throw out stuff, blah, blah, blah there? And like, oh yeah, we throw about 50 boxes a day away, say, oh, can you grab me some, or, whatever. So yeah, it's so easy to get this material. It's so easy to get cardstock and cardboard and the styrofoam. So yeah, it's just.
Yeah, I've found too. Shout out to my coworker Wendy, who's awesome. She is often on Scrapbooker, but kind of has not as much interest as she used to. So she'll just show up and say, hey, I was going through my stuff, and she knows what I make and knows the type of projects I do. And she says, if you want any of this, you can have it.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that's one of the things too, is like, as you let people know what you do and show them what you're working on, all of a sudden they want to help you out, and they want to contribute to what you're working on too. So sometimes it's been really fun to see what your friends, family, and other people end up doing, in terms of stuff that they're just happy to give you, or even if they have never played a war game,
even if they don't know what that thing is. That thing you do is.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends give me bits and doodads and stuff, because I say, hey, if you see anything interesting, little bits and doodads, give it to me, and they'll bring me different stuff, because they know I'm looking for it. So if you get the word out, you can have family members just bringing you stuff, like different interesting shaped pieces of plastic that they're throwing away from a container or whatever. If you don't need it, you can just pitch it. If it's something, I could use this, you can put it in your scrap bin, and that might be the perfect bit that you need to finish off the awesome thing that you're working on.
So have you ever had to wrestle with, what do you keep and what do you pitch when it comes to just all the different stuff?
I may have to get to that point soon, because my basement is filling up. But I'm a huge board gamer too. So I have a lot of board games down there too. So I've got, the walls are just lined with shelves. So I've got hundreds of board games, my crafting stuff, and generally what I do is, like you were talking about the bins, I love those clear plastic bins. Okay. Yep. The clear plastic bins are so awesome, because you can see what's in it. So you can put your stuff in it. Or even stackable bins are great, but the more clear plastic, the better, because it just makes it easy. You don't have to label everything. You can see what's in it. You could put all, maybe all your pillars in one thing, and all your, your shrubbery in one thing, and your trees in one. That's kind of how I do it,
Sure.
So it makes it easier to find.
So I, for my house layout, I need to keep my crafting stuff modular, so that I can make it disappear and use our table for the kitchen again. So one thing that I've found is, one of those plastic drawers, I keep all my most used stuff, the brushes and glue guns and stuff that I'll use. So just 80% of the time I'm using what's in that drawer. Do you have any other tips or organization ways that have helped you out in terms of, how do you have a workspace set up, or a lot of it's one of those funny things that I found of sometimes with the repetition of something you might be working on. It's like, wow, if I found a little efficiency, I'll get like an hour of my life back if I just work a little smarter instead of harder on this.
Oh, right,
Any
right.
tips or ways that have helped you to work, or do you have one spot you like to work at, or?
I really I really work different places. Like sometimes I'll just work up on the, I'll go up on the dining room table, and because we have the TV up there, so I'll watch the TV. Sometimes I'll be in my basement, working on stuff. So it really kind of depends. I don't have one set. I don't have one place, but I have a lot of my stuff in, my paints and stuff in bins and baskets and that kind of stuff. So they are portable. Like I can take it places, take it upstairs, move it around, and that kind of thing. I have found that I'm not very smart with my crafting space, because I don't have to be. If I had to be, because I have a pretty good
luxury,
space, down in the basement to craft, so I don't have to be that organized with it. But some organization, like you said, does help. It just saves time in trying to find stuff. If you have everything thrown in one bin, you can't find stuff. So I'll have, I'll have a bead bin, and I'll have, like a charm bin, and I'll have like a wood bin, and, I'll have different, organizational bins. That really helps to keep you from going insane when you're trying to look for something. Because, you're thinking, oh, that's a perfect thing. Where is it? And if you put it in the specific bin, it's just so much easier to find.
One very subtle tip that you used in a video once and saved me many, many dollars is taking off the cap of the paint, flipping it upside down, and then using that. Because even a lot of times, if I put in a full drop, for a lot of things, if it's just a touch up, that was too much paint. So little efficiencies like that you discover as you see other people's videos, or as you are just doing trial and error. It is funny to kind of these rhythms and these little rituals that become part of what you do, and save you time so you can keep doing things.
Right, and then the cap trick, it really saves you paint, because you're not wasting any paint at all, because you're not squirting it out. There were so many times I was wasting so much paint. I'm like, damn, I'm just throwing this paint away. And then I thought of the idea. I was like, oh, this is a great idea. I can just dip it right out of the cap and start, using it right out of the cap. And then, it's basically a cup. So, when you shake it up, that looked kind of perverted there, but when you shake it up,
I'll put an explicit rating in the show notes too. Thanks for that.
Talking about paint now. I'm talking about shaking up your paint. When you shake it up,
we've already established you have no shame. So I'm just going to show off the show at this point. And
crude and bad jokes. So even in my games. So when you shake it up, there's going to be a little bit in the cap, and if that's not enough for you, just pour some more out of the bottle right into the cap. It's basically a cup, So if I have a bigger job, I'll just pour more into the cap, and I can just pour it right back into the bottle when I'm done. So that's a great tip.
How about shopping? There's the go-to spots, and I think if I say these chains, they are anywhere in the U.S. Michaels, right? You have Michaels out there. Joann Fabrics, is that a national one?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm not positive.
Dollar Tree.
But I'm sure there's an equivalent to Joann Fabrics if they don't actually have a Joann Fabrics.
Hobby Lobby, a lot of different places. Maybe a pretty common one that I use in terms of saving dollars when you are shopping at, not the Dollar Tree, because you kind of know how much everything costs, although you can get stuff on sale like after Christmas, after Halloween, after holidays. It still is half off, so you can really get some good deals,
right?
Which goes to the big box stores, but one of them is if there is a Michaels, which is pretty national, I think, get the Michaels app for your phone, and in there is a coupons thing. And what I found is competitors like Joann Fabrics and other places, they will accept, as long as it's something that is
Right.
comparable or sold, they'll take competitor coupons.
Right.
And
All of them
Michael's
have their own
always
coupons
has,
too.
yep, and they have their own coupons.
Yeah.
And Michael's always has for regular priced items like 40% off or sometimes 50% off.
Right.
So
Right.
sometimes it's like if you paid full price for your most expensive thing, you got served, you got played, like,
Right. Right.
any other shopping tips that you found through your years of accumulating many oddball items?
Well, you know how much I love the dollar store.
Oh yeah,
The other kind of sort of dollar stores can be good too, like Dollar General. I think they're not really, everything's not a dollar, but they're pretty low in
yeah.
prices. You can find some stuff there that you may not find
you
at
mean
regular
dollar in general? Dollar in general?
So you may not find stuff there. You might find more stuff there that you may not find at the dollar store just because they can charge a little more for it.
Yeah.
I'll say, you can get good deals at Walmart. Walmart has a lot of crafting supplies.
Yeah.
I mean, say personally, I'm not a huge fan of Walmart, but you can. Their spray paint's $1. Their black spray paint's $1 a can. Their craft paints are cheap. They have the long glue sticks in large packs. They have craft sticks, beads. So they do have a lot of stuff that you could use. You could save a lot of money, and white glue too. The glue all that I love so much. They could. Yep. You can get all that stuff there cheaper. So yeah, that's a good place to consider too. And there's one everywhere pretty much. So
here's a white glue question that might creep you out. Like how do you know this level of detail about my videos? But when you talk about it keeps me up at night. I don't sleep because of this. You have 2 bottles of glue, mm-hmm. and you say, I'm putting on my glue, and now I'm going to hit it with some 50-50. But you don't differentiate the bottles, Scotty. How do you know you're using the right kind of Elmer's glue? And I want pictures, and I want to get to sleep. I see these bags. I haven't slept in weeks. I just want an answer. How do you know?
Pretty much, it's like when you pick up the bottle, generally when I pick up the bottle, I'll shake it to see if it's, because you can tell immediately whether it's the viscous glue or the watered down glue. So when I do the video, I'll put the one here and I'll put the water down here so I know which one is which, and I don't have to check it. So I'm not psychic or anything.
Just for fun. It's
off camera, so I'm checking it off camera.
So, but just for fun, if you write 50/50 on your 50-50 bottle, and it makes an appearance in a video, when I see it, I'll be like,
I don't know if I've actually showed it on a video though, but I have.
Okay, but when I see it though, even if you didn't do it for me, when I see it or if I see it, I'm just gonna be like, oh, that was for me. Like that was for your boy. That was for your biggest fan, man. Like thank you for the 50-50 bottle. But the fact that you can do a blind just proves you are the grandmaster of crafting. So
and you can. Props. You can buy the Elmer's glue in the big jug and then deal with, pouring it over. But I generally just buy them in the bottles. At Walmart, they're really cheap. Actually, they're just over $1. It's weird because they have the smaller size, which I use in my videos, and then like a double size, which is like essentially double the amount, I think, on the bottle. But the price is doesn't reflect that. Like the price for the bigger one is actually more expensive than buying 2 smaller ones, which is really weird.
Yeah, that's where I actually am grateful, as much as I hated math growing up, for knowing just the basics, to be like, this one's 8 ounces and is $3, and this one's 4 ounces for $1. It pays off for sure.
And plus, generally what I do is when the glue, I just buy a bunch of them at once. Like I'll buy maybe 5 to 10 at once, and just store them. So when a glue bottle gets down to 50% of actually filled with glue, I'll just fill it up with water and shake it up, and I'm good. And that's a 50-50 glue.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing a chemistry set pouring and all this stuff. I just wait till one gets low, and then I then I fill it
See,
up.
I imagine there's a whole montage when you make your 50-50 in addition, of you with like the safety goggles and
like the Monster Lab. Yeah, and when you do make the 50-50, shake it up really well. You want it to really mix nicely. One nice trick is to turn it upside down, put it on something in a bottle or something, and turn it upside down so the glue actually drops to the top, and then you can turn it around again, and then the glue drops back down. So it mixed, you want to mix it up well. You don't want to, the glue just to be a sludge on the bottom.
But only once, though. You only have to get a nice mixing of it once, or is it kind of a shake well every time?
I'll basically shake it every time.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it's nice and, the water's nice and saturated with the glue.
Yeah. What's great is I'm making a spin-off show on my channel called 50-50, and it's all about 50-50 PVA glue, and I want you to be the first guest because this has been the sleeper tip I think that people have been wanting to know about. One, how do you know the difference between your 50-50 glues on your channel and all this stuff? So finally people are getting the answers they want.
Yeah, it's really amazing what you can do with that. I mean, it's so some people have complained, I have to wait for it to dry, and I can't stand it. But I always have the way to get around that is like, don't work on one project and then sit there and watch it and wait for it to dry. It's like you'll go nuts, you'll go insane. Have several projects going at once. That's what I do. Like and I think about like the steps that I need to do. So if I'm doing tentacles for the beast, I'll soak the paper towels in glue, twist them around, let them go off and dry. Then I'm working on, my latrine for the bandit camp or whatever. So, yeah, so that's kind of how I do it. So that way you don't go nuts when you're trying to wait for the glue to dry.
Yeah. I'm in trouble. My wife's here.
Can you help me? And you've ratted yourself out with all your stories. You're not so quiet about jumping out of your car and breaking foam and hiding it in the garage.
Are you hearing this?
Oh no, you talk too loud.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up before I'm in any more trouble here. And oh wait, I don't have to wrap it up. Okay.
No, I said help me get the kids in the bed.
You're ruining my show, Becca. There's 11 viewers right now. They want to see you.
Hey.
Hey there.
This is who I want
to help with us.
I just want.
We appreciate you.
Okay, here's what I need to do. I need to physically lift my kids up and put them in their bunk beds, and then I'll be right back. So, Scotty, I'm going to leave you in charge for like 60 seconds here. I know you can handle it. I mean, I wouldn't have a channel.
What, alone? You're going to leave me alone? You alone with these people?
I'm going to leave you alone. But here's the thing. I won't know what you say until I have to watch this entire thing to see what my show notes are. And then I'm going to be back with some more questions. If you still have time, if you're still good to keep going.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right. Hey guys, I just want to say how much of a great guy Nathan is. I mean, I know you already know this from his personality. Nathan is a fantastic guy. Like you said, we play in a 5e game I have going online. We do it on Roll20. So unfortunately, we don't get to do the table with all the terrain, but we do get to do, the Roll20. And I usually make maps in the Roll20. I don't just draw it out. I'm kind of obsessive about that too. I have to make I'll digitally make the maps or import them or whatever. But yeah, his character is a bard in my game, and his name is Lamph, and he is just so fun. He's this very kind of foofy, swashbuckling lady loving. Feather wearing bard, and we just have so much fun. He he actually convinced a half ogre that he missed his mother, and the half ogre basically adopted him, and it was just a lot of fun. It just really it happened in the game just by chance because of Nathan. So that was just super fun, and I was just telling people about Lamp.
I'm just listening. I'm just eating popcorn and listening.
So we do have a blast, and yeah, what a great guy.
The kids are all in.
That was fast. What'd you do? Throw them in?
Yeah. In the top box.
Or you like tuck yourself in?
Tuck you, child. Tuck you.
Dan.
A subject that you've talked about some on your channel, but here's the deal. You are a victim of your own success, Scotty, because your backlog goes so far that some people might not be able to delve this far back. And how many videos have you posted?
I'm like 400 and some. Is it 420 or something?
400 or so around there, I think is the right number. But
I don't even know.
Yeah. So one of them, you do talk about miniatures. I think you did one once about where to buy them and where to find them.
I did. Yeah, that's a very popular video still, actually.
Okay, so that one is in there. Something pros and cons. Buying miniatures versus sculpting miniatures. Go.
Okay, that's a good question. I'm a pretty good sculptor, but I think sculpting that scale is just very painful. Here's kind of how I talk about it on some vids I've done with making monsters and stuff. You know, cobbling together monsters. Here's the way to look at it. The hardest thing to do are the humanoid-like characters, because they need to look. The proportion needs to be right. If someone looks at it, they immediately know that it's wrong if the proportion isn't correct. Okay. Once you start getting into stranger monsters that aren't, they may be humanoid-ish, but they're not humanoid. They're easier to pull off because they have a weird anatomy. You know what I'm saying? It's not, people don't look at it and say that's wrong.
Kind of going back into you can fudge the proportions like we talked about.
Right, exactly. And you know, you'll see a lot of people do beholders because they're really easy. It's just a ball with an eye and some stalks. You know, anybody can do that. You know, it doesn't take a sculpting master to be able to get the proportions right and all that kind of stuff. And we've seen so many great beholders. Somebody actually asked me, are you going to do a beholder video? But I just feel like it's kind of redundant because so many people have done so many great ones. I don't know if I could live up to all the great people. And, you know, the purple worm I did because, you know, it's not a miniature that you can get a purple worm, a little teeny purple worm, but not a purple worm, you know. Yeah. I wanted to make a real purple, giant freaking purple worm. So that's kind of why I did that video. And I've done a few other monster videos. Like I did, there was a monster in Kingmaker, which was like a giant plant creature, and I made that. And I did a Manicore where I cobbled together some, apart from some wings from a dragon's model and like a lion, a plastic lion and stuff like that. So it's kind of much easier to add to that stuff. Or, you know, if you're doing like an aberration that's just this weird thing, like a living plant or the beholder, they're really easy to do because people don't necessarily have an expectation of what it should look like. But if you're sculpting those really teeny miniatures, you know, those can be really tricky. Mm-hmm. I really like DMG's Mini Magic.
Yeah.
And there have been some people that have posted in the group. I wish I could think of their name. That posted in the group that do paper miniatures, not just the 2D paper miniatures, but they do them out of paper.
I forgot her name. I think it was a she, but I remember they were like, wow. Yes, DMG's in the chat room too. So yeah, the Mini Magic, he teased us forever that he was going to do that series, and then he finally started doing them too. I'd love to see more of those too. But yeah, it is amazing to see some of the 28 millimeter scale stuff people are doing.
Right. I'd like to see more of that because that's not something I've really done. It's not something I really plan on doing because I more just buy the miniatures. I don't really make them. Although I have made monsters. I mean, the freaking like Doom Skull. I mean, that's a major monster. But and I'll make stuff like that. But I don't make like just the miniatures. And so that's why I think it's I like the DMG stuff. And Wylock did the paper miniatures, which is great. That's a great alternative to miniatures. I like the 3D miniatures. That's me. But you're paying a lot more for those. You got to pay for those. But I've just collected over the years. I'm an old man now, and so I've been collecting over the years. And
back in my day, they were pewter, and that's the way it was, and we liked it.
So I've just built up quite a collection. But and I'm one of those people that I don't substitute monsters. If it's not the monster, I don't use it. I mean, I may say this monster is, this thing, but I won't say, oh, this dragon is this dire boar. You know what I'm saying? I won't.
Yeah.
If the monster looks like something that it's supposed to be, then I'll say it's it. But if it's way too, I know that's, yeah. It's just because and so what I'll do is when I do run my games too, I'll modify adventures to the monsters that I have. Like if I don't have certain monsters in the adventure, I'll modify it. And there's nothing saying you can't do that.
Here's a question in the, actually two things. Mars King posted Jan Pilesiak, sorry for botching the name, made paper figs with just glue and paper. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Yes, that's it.
So, and I think
her stuff is awesome.
I think if you search her on YouTube, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, there you go. There you go. She's made like a goblin and a knight, and if you just take her basic techniques, I don't know if I have the patience for it.
Yeah,
it would take a lot of patience to make any number of figures, and I just love the regular figures so much. I'm a collector, so there's that. But yeah, that's a great alternative if you just don't have the money or the access. A lot of people just don't have access to get miniatures.
Yeah,
they live in other countries. It's so expensive to send for them and this kind of thing. That's a great alternative, like the paper miniatures, the Wylock paper miniatures, DMG's Mallow Magic, her paper miniatures, they look great. They really do. They look good.
Yeah. I suppose at some point too, something I've thought about experimenting with, because I somebody asked earlier in the comments how the Keep on the Borderlands project is coming. It is kind of been mothballed. I got started on it where it was like, okay, I know the style that this whole thing has to look like. But sadly, keeping up with my own house has to keep taking precedent over the Keep on the Borderlands, which just sucks. Like being an adult.
You have 3 kids, so that's a time. That is a little bit of a time sink. My daughter's grown and she's out, on her own. She's a young woman, so she's gone.
Yeah, but
I don't have the kid thing.
Yeah, that'll cut into it, but it's also actually back here is a haunted house that I threw together quick for them, so I do get to craft other random stuff with them sometimes. But one of the projects I did on that was in Photoshop. If you've ever seen the Pathfinder pawns, they're kind of like a rectangular ones. I did every NPC or possible.
Yeah, you did those. That's right.
For it's like 250 or so, but then. Yeah. But then the less smart Nathan thought, you're going to have someday this whole thing and then all these 2D minis? You can't do that. But at the same time, I'm thinking, well, it's going to cost, even if I got them $1 a piece, $250 just for these minis, which is not realistic. And then I thought, well, some of it is how many men at arms with a pole arm need to have super great detail. So I started toying with a more generic, kind of like there's those posable like sculptor models. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like you set it up and then you base it off of that. About finding some sort of way to do a more standardized armatured figure, and then it's more of how you paint it to represent. Oh, he looks like he's wearing armor and this and that, and I think that's kind of how some of the mini magic stuff that DMG has done kind of is too. You don't necessarily see a full face or something, but it's more representation. So I think especially for like a mass of armies, or for playing some more war gaming, and I'm getting into chainmail more. I'd love to try and crack that to find just a very fast, like you said, it's just time consuming to do it.
Right.
So, yeah. Mars King says just one army. Pff, you call yourself a gamer. But you see, I still have a house I can live in because I haven't had to like lose my mortgage financing Warhammer stuff, so I'm okay.
Right? Yeah, you would have to take a second mortgage.
Great, a great Warhammer story. I was at the evil Walmart the other day picking up something, and I have a jacket with some buttons, and one of them says "Party Like It's 1974 Dungeon Crawl Classics." And if you've ever had this exchange, a guy probably early 20s comes up and sort of says, "Hey," an employee there. He says, "Hey,
yeah,
you play D&D?" It's like, yeah, and then you're waiting to see what they say. and then like 5 minutes later, he's getting in trouble for not getting back to work, and we're talking 40K and all sorts of stuff.
That's hilarious.
It's pretty awesome. Now here's another plug that I'm going to give, and by the way, I have no sponsorship. I have no vested interest in plugging Scotty. I just think he's brought so much joy into my life and personhood through this great craft and friendship that I just love telling you about it. The Facebook group and the forum. Imagine if you went to high school in the dreaded lunchroom of like, shoot, where am I going to sit? It's the first day of school at the lunchroom. And every table, everyone is wearing a Dungeon Crawl Classics button. And you're like, oh my goodness. Like everybody there, you don't have to explain it. You don't have to explain that playing D&D does not involve real life pentagrams on the ground and slaying a goat, unless you want that in 28mm scale for your bad guy boss. People get it. There is. I almost hate to say it, and I hate to say it because I'm worried somehow it'll increase. There has been such a non-existent amount of trolling, negative comments. Everybody there, it's the most positive place I've seen on the internet, and I hesitate to say it because I'm worried somehow I'll jinx it. But on the forum and on the Facebook page, it is just the best. It is the best. Everybody gets it. Everybody is very positive and supportive, and it's so many great ideas and so many great people, and a number of people that I've met and gotten to know online through there. We've ended up mailing each other modules and games and parts and stuff back and forth at whatever level you're comfortable with. That use your head, but it is really awesome, that feeling when there's just a kindred spirit. And it's like, wow, they get it. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but that when all of a sudden it's like, wow, like we love the same thing. That's great.
Right. And it is great to have a place that you love the same thing. And I think because the crafting is, we're not asking you to pick a game system. We're not asking you to have this or that. It's just straight up crafting. So we don't get the kind of arguments that they get sometimes on, role-playing sites where they're, oh, that game sucks. My game is best. Old school is the best. New games suck. And, 4E or 5E sucks. And, I like 3.5. It's the best ever, and Pathfinder, no, that's the best. It's just like, we don't get those kind of arguments.
And those arguments are basically like,
because I'm like, whatever you want to play.
Well, it's like arguing over what kind of barbecue sauce you like the most. It's like, who cares? Like, do you like it? Then great. And if somebody else doesn't, that's fine too. So so I'd agree. It's very like, hey, it's very system agnostic for the most part. It would be cool to see more sci-fi, modern, other terrain. But hey, there's a question for you. Non-fantasy, and you've done some sci-fi on your channel.
Yeah, just a touch. Yeah,
I'll put a touch in the show notes on page 900. But I'm gonna make a separate video and I'll put the link for that in the show notes, announcing when the show notes are done. but
It'll crash your computer.
But yeah, seriously, what are some other genres that either you'd like to build, you have built, and we just haven't had a chance to see on the channel or forums or other spots, non-fantasy that you could tell us about, or kind of dreams what you'd love to craft in?
Right. Post-apocalyptic is what I'd really like to do. I almost started a post-apocalyptic campaign, but we got with the 5e, so that kind of went by the wayside. But yeah, I've had a couple groups, at my table sometimes, and the group kind of fell through, so it didn't flesh out. So yeah, I didn't. So like I've said before, generally I'm showing you what I'm working on for my own game.
Sure.
My own game table. They really coincide with what I'm showing you, and so yeah, I think post-apocalyptic. I can't say post-apocalyptic is what I would like to do.
Kind of a segue when you talk about usually the stuff you're working on is the stuff you make your episodes for. There were some production questions in the comments. One from me is, what would you say the lag time is from when you shoot something to when it ends up on your channel?
Generally not too long. Generally, it can be like, maybe I'll shoot it the previous week and then I'll do it the next week. But I've got projects that I've shot a year ago and I still haven't, I've got the footage, but I haven't put the video together for whatever reason, so generally it's what I'm working on recently, but sometimes not. Sometimes it can be an old project, or because I do have projects I've shot but never, because it takes, you got to sit down and edit it and put it together, and it does take time. So
another question was, have you ever had a video or that you started doing and you just had to scrap it? And you said, this is not coming together, not going to happen.
That's a great question. Generally, not always, but generally I'll do a test first of something to see if it works, and then if I like the result, then I'll do a video for it. That's not always 100% true. Like sometimes I think it's going to work and I get lucky and it works.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I'll do a test first and then I'll shoot the video for
it. Another question was, if you were going to start another channel, what would it be about? Other than hair care, because I think they want to DM Scotty's hair care channel.
I'd probably get more views on that than I would on my. But I like to do a. I actually have a bunch of the old school metal robots when they used to produce those, like the Micronauts and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I still have a bunch of that stuff. I'd like to do like an animated show, like an animated kind of series on those. Like I was going to call it Robots in Love, or I was going to call it Giant Robots in Love. So I would do like the crafting and the sets for it, and then I'd have the giant robots. So, but it never. Maybe someday I'll do it.
Could it be a campaign setting? Robots in Love. I could see it on Drive Through RPG already. Just
totally.
Some other questions looking into what could be or the future. One would be for yourself. What sort of things excite you or are things you see potential in, or kind of where you want to go for yourself in your own challenging yourself in the crafting scene and your own interests? We've seen that with Tilescapes.
Right.
What other things are kind of on the horizon that you're thinking about?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you've kind of seen the evolution of my crafting, and what I like about it is anybody could do any of this stuff. Like if you want to do the traditional 2.5D, it's pretty easy to do. You just glue together if that's all the materials you have, you glue together cardboard, put a texture on it, and you're good to go. You don't need to do Tilescapes or whatever. or the 2.5D Next, I've always kind of like my style has gone definitely through an evolution, but what I kind of like is, I could, delete those earlier vids and stuff, but, I kind of like that there's these different evolutionary styles that you could do. I mean, you could just do the 2.5D, original, or the Next, or, Tilescapes. I think with my channel, I'm always evolving and reinventing what I'm doing. So it's like, it doesn't, my channel's not static. It's not like, here's my style, that's it. It's like, I think my style has changed. And, I like to give different people options. People say, well, why'd you do this? And then they do this. Well, because, what works for me, you may want something different. So I try to show, because I've done, stuff with foil that, other people have done. I did a stairway with foil, and that can be great if you needed a stairway quickly and you didn't want to wait for the glue soaked, paper towels to dry. You don't have 2 days to wait for it to dry. You could just slap on the foil and then paint it, So I like showing different styles. I've done torches with, out of Q-tips, and then I'm doing torches out of, tea lights. And so I like, one isn't better than the other. I'm saying it's like whatever works for you, whatever level you're comfortable with. That's kind of my goal of the channel. Some of my newer projects might cost a little more money than some of my earlier projects, because Tilescape, you have to buy the cork and all that
Sure.
stuff. But pretty much everything else in Tilescapes is just what we've used for 2.5D. It's cardboard, it's the dollar store foam core, it's craft sticks, it's all that cheap stuff you've already got and used. So really, it's the cork that's just the thing that would cost you any money. Everything else is just pretty much what we've been doing. But with the tea lights, you got to buy the tea lights and that kind of stuff, as opposed to a Q-tip. You can buy a box and you can make 100 torches. So really, I like that. I like that there's variances in my style, and that you can choose what works for you. You don't have to say, oh, I have to do it exactly this way. And you can always mix and match.
How have you? I'm trying to roll this into kind of a comment and a question. I feel like, and you can argue this if that's not how you felt, but I feel like you kind of stumbled onto a real cool segment of the RPG scene that really I don't think was there nearly to any extent before you really started your YouTube channel, and that picked up steam. And that was only 2.5 or maybe 3 years ago at the longest.
Yeah.
So now you have 23,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4,000 people on Facebook. The dude at Walmart, when that was talking to me, I said, have you ever heard a DM Scotty or seen any of his stuff? Oh yeah, I've seen some of his stuff. Like, for people into that scene, you've kind of really lit up a whole community of people doing stuff. And I'm sure most of the people in the chat right now would attest to like how you've inspired them, and there'd be lots of stories. I could imagine being satisfying to see people do their own expressions, like you talked about with tea lights. You could do Q-tip, you could do this, and sometimes in your own videos you show like, hey, here's a technique that somebody else took and ran with.
Right.
What would your hope be as a community as it keeps growing, as people find different expressions and different things? What's your hope for the future for the whole scene? Other than that, I would guess that it stays to be really awesome on the forum. People are really nice to each other.
Right. This really is about something we all love. We're all here because we love this, right? And we get pleasure and joy. We wouldn't be your time is precious. You wouldn't be wasting your time if you didn't enjoy this. So, we talked about our community, how great it is. And I like that, it's not about politics. It's not about religion. It's not about what game system you like. It's just this love we have of crafting worlds for our games, for our enjoyment. I mean, crafting is enjoyment in itself, and very soothing and very, fun to do in itself, even just the crafting. But just sharing this with the players and other people, my hope for the future is that it just stays, a nice, the people, the niceness of the community stays. And I think it will. I think because there's so many great people, and we generally don't, there are some exceptions, but we generally don't, try to bring, this religion and politics and all this other crazy stuff that's out in the world, into it. It's like, let's leave that out the door. We don't have to agree on any of that stuff. We agree on that crafting is freaking fun. We love crafting, and let's just focus on crafting, and for the most part, that is how it is. And that's how I hope it continues to stay, because I'm so inspired every day by people that post. People tell me they're inspired by me, but I'm inspired just as much by other people, what I see and post, and I'm just so glad that I could be some kind of impetus to get people to say, oh, I can do this. Because when you make something with your own hands, our society discourages that now. They want you to go buy everything. They want you to go out and go buy your toys and go buy this and buy that. And, don't be creative, let somebody else do it for you. There is nothing like sitting down and making something yourself. You know what I'm saying? And even something as simple as a dungeon door and pillars and little furniture and stuff, you're totally concentrated on that, and you're just having a great time. I totally focus on that. When I'm doing crafts, I totally focus on it. Everything else is gone. Everything else in the world just is gone. I'm just totally focused and enjoying what I'm doing. And I think that's something that a lot of people take away from this. And I think it's great. And I've had continue a little bit. I've had people tell me stories of emotional traumas that they've had, and that I helped them through it because they saw my videos and they started crafting. And that some people, like I've had people tell me that they've had chronic pain, and just concentrating on crafting helps them relieve for some time, just even a little bit of time, that they don't have to think about the pain. Or somebody in emotional trauma who has been through a trauma, and like I say, the crafting is very soothing. It's very your attention is on it, and it's just, there's something with doing something with your hands that just really is primal, and people it really gets to your core. And I just think it's great that so many people. I think there's a lot of people who not only enjoy the craft but have been helped in their lives literally by the craft, by not thinking about the pain, by not thinking about what mental trauma you had. So for me to just be a small part of that, that inspires me every day.
We've got a great comment in here from Black Magic Craft. Says, Scotty, crafting has been a real lifesaver for me, somewhat literally. I was a 15-year smoker and needed to quit. Starting crafting for D&D and being super distracted was what allowed me to do that successfully. Would not have been inspired to start if it wasn't for your videos. So there you go. There's one story in many of kind of how it's really meant a lot to people. And I think I've told you before, but I'd say for me too, when I was a kid, I remember watching Bob Ross on PBS, and my mama stayed at home when I was a kid, so she'd be around the house, and I would be had my watercolor paints out, and I'd be painting along with Bob Ross, and it was like, that was my thing. It was so much fun and creativity, and I feel like 30 years later, I stumbled across this modern day geeky Bob Ross saying, we got a happy little dungeon right here. There's a happy little blood altar right here. And
happy little blood altar right here.
and what it really has done for me is gave me, not only with RPGs, but the great thing with crafting is to play in a game, and this is why it's awesome, is because you play it with other people. But when you can't have that, now you have another outlet that engages a different part of your brain. And for me, it engages.
That's a great point.
It engages this part of my brain, the healthy inner child that says, you can make anything. You can do this. Like, just give it a try. Just start doing something. And all of a sudden, you're not going to the store and buying that thing. You are making that thing, and you're seeing it come to life. and it's been such a healthy thing for me. And there have been times that I've had ups and downs too, and I use as a barometer for how I'm doing, of like, man, I really haven't made anything in a long time. And then I start to like see other things of like, well, maybe I should just, take some time to craft. And then all of a sudden, like I said, it lights up this part of yourself and your mind, and it's just such a great thing. So thank you from me for really reigniting that in my life as an adult, which I don't know if I really had something quite comparable. And as you get older, the stakes get higher, and you need something to escape to. You need something to, be able to do and invest yourself in, where it's just for fun, and you have all the control to put as much or as little into it as you want. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun for me too.
And I think as adults we get away from that. We get away from play, and you need play. It just really, it's just I don't know. It clears all the clutter out of your mind. It's to pretend that you're somebody else or you're somewhere else, and it's just fun. And I think adults get away with that, and RPGing can get you back to that. And then on top of it, we got our crafting, which is just totally fun too. So you've got, when you're not RPGing, you can be crafting. So, yeah. And another great thing about the craft is the price point is really very low. Like if you, or it can be expensive, but you can start fairly inexpensively. Where say you start doing something like Hearst Arts, you got to buy like $40 molds. You got to buy like the plaster, that you can't even use regular plaster. You got to use special plaster. So you got to buy the dental plaster. You got to have the all the stuff, the shake table that shakes the mold, and you got so you're talking a lot of money even if you make it yourself, for like something like Hearst Arts or whatever. But yeah, with the craft, the price point really is low, and you may already have half the tools anyway. Your wife may have some craft paints or scissors, and she may have a glue gun, or you may have a glue gun.
Pink
so
glue gun
have to
that I've been
everything.
stuck with is pink glue guns is what I've been stuck with. So.
Oh, I wanted to say one thing. I can't give too many details, but I've been invited to a convention.
Oh, I was going to ask about this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be in Virginia. I'm not going to tell you where yet. I will be there 3 days. I'll be there starting September 30th into October. And I'll be doing like workshops. I want to run a game or two at the convention. And if, think about this, if anybody could come to the convention, I would love to meet these people that, we see on the forum and the Facebook group, and just, it's face to face is a whole different thing. Yeah, so I will definitely have more details on this as the date gets closer. But I'm definitely confirmed that I'm going to this. So I will be at this convention.
So will people hear the details then on the Facebook page, or in a video, or but you'll get the word out then? Okay.
I'll probably do both. I'll probably do a short video talking about the convention, and then do a notification on Facebook.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'd recommend, even as someone who's only played over the ether on Roll20, I guarantee you will have fun playing in Scotty's game. And if you don't, then,
well, thank you.
To be honest, there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry. You need to see a doctor and see why you're having fun for a yes and DM like Scotty. So yeah, well, that sounds awesome. I had a chance at GaryCon last year to meet Terrainaholic, Bill, and it's just so much fun. Again, it's a step beyond like that community, like I mentioned, where it's like, wow, everybody gets me here, and then it's like, wow, I'm like meeting somebody that like beyond that I've seen their videos and all those things too. So yeah, if Scotty rolls it out, if you get a chance, it'd be a lot of fun. So
I did meet Bill at the last Gen Con. He did actually do a video of me. And,
that's right. He did a sit down with you.
Yeah, he did a sit down interview with me. I always think it's funny, that he's such a big fan of me, because I never felt that my stuff was in his league. Like he's seriously talented, and but he just loves my stuff. Like he loves the craft. He loves my stuff, and I think for the reasons that I make it accessible to people. I think that's one reason he really likes it. You don't need a lot of stuff. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars to start. And it's very easily accessible to people. So I think that's what he really likes about it. But yeah, he's a great guy. He's really fun.
See, you need to be honest, because you're kind of tricking people. You see a bunch of cardboard and you see a bunch of cereal boxes, and you make it sound like it's cheap. But then you're going to start thinking, well, I don't really need another glue gun, but I only have a mini gun. I think I need the large one. And then you think, well, I don't need a burnt umber. I already have a brown. And then you think, well, but I kind of, I do. So, and then you're, seeing a marriage counselor over your crafting addiction. But anyway, yeah. So there are costs to it. That's all I'm trying to warn people about. Okay,
oh yeah,
Scotty?
Yeah. There are costs, but I think what I'm trying to say is to start. You can dabble in it, and you're not going to have to spend hundreds of dollars to try to make a tile or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just teasing,
yeah.
But
I'm always buying craft stuff, so I know right where you're.
I'd say it can be you can put as little or as much into it as you want.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
even like what DMG does, intentionally, he uses a very basic palette, knowing that not everybody's going to have access to 600 colors at a big box store. So so that's one of the things I find inspiring too, is when people with whatever limitations they have are just kicking butt making stuff. So.
Right.
Okay. I think I'm dang it, you've answered all my questions. I thought I could really stump you or think of something else. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm really happy with how Tilescapes is being received. It's not trying to be, I'm not trying to, like I said earlier, I'm not trying to one up anything or anything. It's like I'm just experimenting with different styles, and you're on a journey with me. I'm experimenting and trying different styles, and I just started doing the Tilescapes, and I really like the flavor it gives to the game. I'm just really liking the 3D elements in the fronts of the buildings and all that kind of stuff. But there's nothing wrong with any of the other systems we've done, or even DMG or Wylock, any 2.5D. That's all great stuff, and you can even mix and match. You don't even have you could have Tilescapes, and you can have 2.5D next, and you can have 2.5D. And there's no real limit on what how you combine this stuff. But I'm really happy with how Tilescapes is received, and I just want to thank everybody for all the kind comments.
And it's got a very fun throwback intro. Takes me back to childhood of collect them all, right?
A lot of people have said that with the isometric stuff, yeah.
Well, if you got a minute after we go off air, I can, if I can just say thank you again. But I think to close out the live broadcast, we can't leave without you saying a particular catchphrase that I know we all want to hear. But again, thank you for taking time out of our defunct game night, from you DMing and me being a bard, and yeah, just chatting, and both of us talking about something we love very much, which is just crafting in this whole scene. So what do you want to leave everybody with, Scotty?
You know what I'm going to say. You know what it is. Go forth and craft.